Okay, let's talk about 3 steps for understanding expectations in your marriage. It's really important to understand expectations. And in this lesson, my wife and I are going to talk through those with you, help you to understand, give you some practical steps for understanding expectations, getting on the same page in your marriage. At the end of this lesson, we'll give you a real practical tool for doing that in your marriage. But before we get to that, we want to make sure that we set this whole topic up. We want to make sure you understand why expectations are important. So let's get to that. My wife will cover this first point here.
Okay, so here's the first thing. Everyone has expectations. We all have them. We all have things in our mind of what I'm expecting from my spouse, or even what I think about what our marriage is supposed to look like. We all have expectations. Even you people out there that are saying, I'm laid back, whatever, come as it may. I don't have any expectations of my wife or my husband or even my marriage. I just roll with it. That isn't true. We all have expectations, big or small. So it's important to start with knowing that we all have expectations. Now, here's what typically happens. You have an expectation or your spouse has an expectation. Life goes on, and all of a sudden, that expectation your spouse had didn't come to fruition. So now your spouse is upset, hurt, angry, frustrated. So now they react to that. That's how conflict starts. So again, let me give you an example. It's Valentine's Day, the dreaded Valentine's Day. For many husbands out there, the pressure is on. So let's say for my husband, my expectation is beautiful red roses. I love chocolate. And I'd love a note or a card with not Hallmark's version of what a husband should say to his wife, but what my husband would say, something personal. So Valentine's Day comes, I get up in the morning, don't see a note, no flowers yet, no chocolate. And by the end of the night, we went out for a nice dinner, but I never got the flowers, chocolate, or even the note. It was a missed expectation. So here's what happens. I get upset. I'm angry, right? I'm hurt. I'm sad. So now I start reacting to those feelings. And my husband then is like, whoa, what's going on? I just gave you a nice dinner. I said, I love you. See, the problem was it was missed expectations. And that set us off onto a course of having an argument that it didn't have to be an argument. If I had been clear about my expectations, maybe if my husband had asked, do you have any expectations? We could have avoided the conflict. But that's why it's important to know you have expectations. So make sure you make those clear so you avoid the conflict.
So see, this is where communication comes into play, because I'm not a mind reader. I can't understand. I don't know all those things. Maybe some of you husbands out there are thinking, man, I can relate to you. That exact scenario maybe happened in your marriage. That was obviously just a hypothetical in our marriage, but for some people that exact scenario happens, or scenarios just like it, and you think, I'm not a mind reader. Well, that's why communication is so critical. It's so important in your marriage to learn how to talk through, and especially for men out there, it doesn't always come real naturally, how to communicate this, how to get on the same page, and that's why, to finish up here, we're going to give you these 3 steps, and we're going to give you just a real practical way to get on the same page. We're going to actually give you the page. It's downloadable right there. You can find this in our lesson resources tab for this particular lesson. But this is a worksheet about helping you understand expectations in your marriage. So let's go through the 3 steps that are right there on the worksheet.
Okay, so you see there, your first step is to discover your expectations. Take some time, really think about, what are my expectations? What happened in this latest argument that really frustrated and upset me? Get those down on paper. Take your time and really think it through. Be clear, be concise, and be specific. So once you've discovered what your expectations are, now you and your spouse need to get together and to start talking about how those expectations were missed. We have some questions there to kind of help you walk through that. Because again, what's important about expectations is your husband or wife can't read your mind. So the discovering piece is really important for you to be able to say, here's what my expectations were. And then as you move into that step 2, you start talking about, wow, I didn't realize that was your expectation. How did I mess that up? How did I miss that? What are we going to do differently next time? Okay, and then that 3rd step is all about your next steps. See, again, what we've talked about in our Marriage Basics series about the importance of communication and conflict is that you gain through the struggle, right? That you come out on the other side of a conflict having learned from one another. You have new insight and new skills that you're going to put in place. So that 3rd step is really important to say, okay, what did we learn and what are we going to do differently next time? And take some time to talk about that. To the spouse that maybe missed the expectations, say, What are some other things I could do to anticipate what your expectations might be next time? And lo and behold, what you'll have is a conversation that helps you avoid that conflict from happening again. So use the workbook, talk about it with your marriage mentor or your small group.